What's up, trade crew? Welcome back to HVAC R&D, hosted by Rhydon Atzenhofer. It is a bright and early spring morning. The birds are chirping, our allergies are killing us, but it's a great time here in the Carolinas, and it's also a great day to talk about press fittings with a Canadian legend. So let's get it, y'all. From the beginning of this show, I've always said that the trades industry is built on great people with great stories, and I want the trade crew to hear yours. Whether you're in the field turning a wrench or running duct, building a trades empire from your office, working the distribution counter, grinding a sales territory, repping or working for a manufacturer, or anywhere in between, HVAC R&D is the show about the power of conversation, collaboration over competition, and sharing real conversations from every corner of the trades community. And if you've got a story to tell, then I've got a microphone ready for you. So when you're ready, go check out the links to the HVAC R&D podcast questionnaire that are on all social media channels and on the website, and get in touch with me about joining an episode of the show. If this is your first time listening, thank you so much for sharing some time with me. If you're coming back show after show, thank you for helping me continue to make this dream of highlighting our trades a reality. Please make sure to smash the like and subscribe buttons on any and all streaming and social platforms where you follow the show, and please share with your friends and trade crew. If you aren't following the show, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd, and on LinkedIn, Facebook, and TradeHounds as the HVAC R&D podcast. Please make sure to go check out hvacrnd.com and visit the swag shop for some cool merch and some Cajun Joe's Bayou Spice, and then check out the vendor hub for discounts on BetterHelp, Chirp, Service Titan, and my newest partner, SkillCat. So, all right, trade crew, back on the mic today is my Canadian brother from episode 87, Mr. Jason Norman. You know him as HVACJ604 on Instagram. He is a Red Seal HVACR journeyman, an industrial gas fitter, a bourbon collector, a coffee snob, and the proud dad of three. He's also now the general foreman and service manager at Emerald Green Mechanical in British Columbia. Today's show, sponsored by RLS Press Fittings, dives into his HVAC journey, discovering and adapting press technology, leadership in the field, and everything in between. So, Jay, welcome to the show. It's about time.
How's it going, Ryan? Thanks, man. That's quite the intro. I mean,
you deserve it, my friend.
I guess so, yeah. Yeah, it's been a minute since I've been on the show, eh?
Yeah, it has. So it was episode 87 in Atlanta at AHR 2023. So what was that? Was it January, I think? It was like January 25th or 26th, somewhere close to that, I think.
I think so. I think I had a friend beside me, too. I think the doctor was there as well.
Yep. The doctor was in the house, and then Kristen tried to sneakily engineer an HVAC foodie Instagram live stream.
Oh, right.
And it was an absolute debacle. It did not work at all, but we damn sure tried. We tried, but that was a good show. It was a fun show. We gave away a ton of cool stuff.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Because one of your guys, I think, got what did he get? He got a mighty bracket from Rector
right.
Seal,
Yeah.
I think.
Right. Yep.
So yeah, that was a good time.
It was, yeah. So was the last time too. We still get to meet up at the most recent show too. Orlando was pretty nice.
Yep, Orlando was fun.
A little bit warmer.
Definitely warmer. Well, and I mean, I saw you. Did you come to Chicago? I can't remember if you were in Chicago.
I was. That was a little bit colder. Yeah.
That one was very cold.
Sorry to forget that one.
Well, and that show was an absolute whirlwind. What's so funny is I was way, way overbooked with stuff in Atlanta. So I thought I would try to plan Chicago better. And even though I had less on the calendar, I was absolutely crammed with stuff the entire time. I really did not get to catch up with people as much as I wanted to.
Yeah, it goes quick.
No joke. So you are now the general foreman and service manager. So kind of how has the shift been from field life back to the office?
It's been all of the things. All of the feels, all of the cries, all of the laughs, all of the successes, all of the failures. No, but it's been good. We've grown a lot. Like, I've been with my employer since 2007. when we were just like a handful of technicians, and now we have about 25 technicians, right? So when you're small, there's never a need for like specific titles of like, you're this and you're that, and you report to me and I report to you. Like, it's just a group of guys getting the work done, right? But as you start to grow, you start to realize that there needs to be a little bit of structure. And we have a lot of younger technicians, both apprentices and journeymen. And I was like, hey, I'm really effective in the field. I'm great at what I do, but I also want to kind of move away from the tools so I have more time to do some mentoring, some training, and then provide some greater structure for the guys in the field as well from like an office standpoint.
I think having been in the field so long, when you move to the office side and you kind of see, when you get to take your experience of, okay, I wish the people in the office would have asked this question or said this question, or we would have prepared things this way differently. So I feel like you get to bring that experience to try to be better at supporting the guys in the field in the future as you kind of change and implement updated processes.
Yeah, and that's it exactly. And as much as the guys in the field are awesome that I get to work with, the girls in the office are just as great as well too, right? They're super receptive to getting stuff done and solving problems and coming up with solutions to issues, whether it's something as simple as scheduling and who can we send to where, because unfortunately we're not a firehouse where we all just hang out and drink coffee and make pizza, wait for the bell to ring. We gotta schedule the guys for work during the day and then deal with the inevitable service calls and unscheduled things that happen in the day. So it's
I
busy.
think you just came up with like the perfect uh, HVAC business where
There
we
you
just
go.
treat it like a
Right?
firehouse. We build a sweet clubhouse, pizza oven, grill, barbecue pit, coffee, bourbon bar, and you just take 30. What do you take, a 48-hour shift, and you just go hang out for 48 hours, and in that time, if you got to go to work, you go to work, and other than that,
Right?
have a good old time.
That's not bad. I like that.
I mean, it's not a
Maybe we could
terrible
make that
idea.
work. The bourbon thing might not fit into that puzzle because you got to be able to
That's
do
true. If we're
your
doing
tasks.
emergency on-call service, I guess not.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe, but we could probably do like a cigar room, maybe.
Okay, now see, now we're
Yeah,
talking. This is problem solving 101 in HVAC. This is how it's done. Um,
yeah.
so you're also a proud girl dad. How are things at home with the wife and the three little girls?
It's busy, but it's super fun. I mean, if you're a parent, but like watching your kids grow and thrive and go through challenges and figure stuff out on their own is amazing, right? So each of my kids are unique, and it's really enjoyable watching them learn things or skills and watching them play soccer. I got one daughter who plays high level soccer. I have another daughter who does high level dance, and then my other daughter just does her own thing, and it's awesome. In fact, we have a company trip this weekend. We're supposed to go take a bus and go see the Seattle Mariners, but unfortunately, I can't attend because my
Oh,
youngest daughter has a competition for dance that day, and I decided that was important to me. So you got to make sacrifices as a parent, that's for sure, and make choices, and you can't be everywhere at once.
no, and I think you also end up, you have to make sacrifices as a friend to support your friends making decisions like that stuff too. I
Yeah,
just I just recently became an uncle for the second time a couple of weeks ago, so I'm excited to get to be a part of my little nephew and my new little niece's life, because Chris and I don't have kids. We just have our three little fur children that drive us nuts, that are
yeah,
all passed out around my feet in the office this morning.
yeah. You woke him up too early.
Yeah, it was a little too early for them to have to go to work in the office with me, but it's all right. So I know you and I both are also very serious about our coffee game. I
Sure.
am a quad Nespresso deep this morning to make sure I was ready for this show. So did you fire up the Nespresso machine this morning, or are you waiting for a Tim Hortons visit on the commute?
I debated bringing my because I don't have an espresso machine. I have like a full on espresso machine. So like you
Oh,
put
see,
the
perfect.
beans in the hopper, it grinds out. So I was gonna bring the machine downstairs with me where I am and just like grind up a batch as opposed to like cracking a beer. But I forgot to bring that down with me. So instead, I'll just flip my Yeti lid.
So I was waiting for you to be like, so now I will crack that beer. No.
Yeah. I mean, I've made poorer decisions. That's not too bad. But no, I made a quad Americano this morning myself. That's usually my go-to for the morning. Is I'll make a quad Americano at home.
So I made sure that what I brewed this morning was perfectly fit for this show. So I pulled up the whiskey essence flavored Barista Creations double shot or double espresso shot to
Nice.
make sure that I was on brand for this morning. And also, speaking of alcoholic beverages, your Prosecco pal, my wife Kristen, says cheers and is looking forward to when the Prosecco pals are reunited at some point. And she wanted to make sure that you were holding down the bubbly side of the HVAC community in BC.
I have no shame in my prosecco game. Here I'll tell you a little story. We went for a a fishing trip, and we were fishing for sturgeon on the Fraser River, and I pull out of my bag like an orange juice, and then the fishing guide's like, "What do you got in there?" I'm like, "Oh, I got some orange juice." He's like, "Oh, okay, that's all right." He's like, "You don't got any beers in there?" I'm like, "Well, I have some beers, but I was gonna do some mimosas to start," and then I pull out my like sparkling white wine, and he's like, in all of my years of guiding on this river, I have never had a grown ass man pull out a bottle of sparkling white wine to make mimosas at 9 o'clock in the morning. But in my defense, is there a better morning drink? I don't know. Like, it's perfect. This gets the day rolling.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a better morning drink than a nice solid mimosa, because you get kind of the best of all the worlds. You know,
and I brought cups for everybody.
Especially if it was a long night before, if you're on a fishing trip. Knocks off the edge a little bit, and you just ease on into the morning. Plus, if you catch a huge sturgeon before 9 a.m., you can pop the thing and celebrate the catch, right?
Ooh. Yeah, we didn't wait. I think we came off the dock, threw out the anchor, and cracked her open.
Perfect. What's up, trade crew? You've heard the buzz, you've seen the press gang at every single AHR. Contractors across the country are ditching their torches for RLS press fittings, and they're not looking back. Why? Because RLS lets you finish faster, safer, and cleaner. From rooftops to mechanical rooms, crawl spaces, and attics, it's a press and go solution that's leak tested, UL recognized, and proudly made in America. Make the switch to RLS and take the heat out of your installs, literally. RLS-Rapid Locking System, press forward and press on. So let's talk path to HVAC, and we'll kind of let everybody get the real story of HVAC J that, you know, we get to see constantly. You always have funny but very engaging videos all the time, but there's a lot of people that are, as we know every day, there's a lot of people that are still just brand new to this. So I really one of my favorite things about this show is getting to really get people's backstory so that we can share that with everybody, and also with the new people that continue to come into the industry. So, you know, for new people that are newly following and newly listening to you, you know, how did you first get into HVAC, and, you know, what has made you stick with it for the past almost 20 years?
It's a big question, but let's do it. I didn't know I wanted to be an HVAC mechanic. I went through high school. Well, you know what I mean? Some people are destined for the trades, and that's what they want to do. But I went through high school. I did all the 12s. I did Chem 12, Math 12, Physics 12, History 12. The list goes on, right? And because I was going to go to university. Well, here's what happened. By the time you finish grade 12 and you have to write 1,000 papers and do a whole bunch of government exams for all these things, I was so done with writing papers and big exams. I was like, why do I want to do this? No, thank you. Another 4 years of this. So my father is a sheet metal mechanic. And so I always grew up where if you did something bad, like you broke a window, your punishment was you had to repair the window with dad, right? Or if you put a hole in the wall, you had to fix it with dad. Like he would show you how to do these tasks, right? So growing up, I learned a lot of those basic skills of using basic tools and stuff. So I always had an interest in the trades. And in grade 12, I kind of looked more into it and decided that, yeah, maybe the trades route is something I should explore. And I actually took a course called Trades Discovery post secondary school. And it was kind of like an intro into many different trades. And you spend a couple of days in the different like apprenticeship departments, and then you'd move on to a new one. And out of that, I determined that HVAC and refrigeration was the one for me because it kind of has a little bit of everything.
That is true.
And then here we are. That was 20 years ago I took that course.
Well, and you've been with Emerald Green pretty much since you got into the field in 2007. So, and it's rare to see that kind of loyalty these days. But what has really kept you committed to continuing to grow, kind of where you basically started?
I mean, ever since 2007, like I've been with them since I was indentured pretty much. So I do have a lot of loyalty towards that, but also like they provided challenges daily. Like we worked on cool stuff and unique equipment and with unique clients that is not just, your office building with a rooftop unit and a fart fan on the roof. Right. So we got to
Yep.
work on, I had exposure to many different facets of the industry because that's what was really important to me is that I needed to find an employer that would A, support me, but also B, provide me with interesting stuff to work on. It is a double edged sword because with different technology or different types of units, you have to have some brain power to go with that and some different tools potentially to work on these different units. But that's what excited me. Something different was something that always excited to me, and a challenge to go and learn something new was also kept me interested in the trade as well.
And I'll kind of second that. On the distribution side, in the last couple of years, I've made some different changes with work and different things, and it's allowed me to really expand and learn a whole lot more about the commercial industrial side and some other things. Where growing up in the mountains with Cajun Joe, we had to know how to work on everything. So I mean, we worked on boilers, we worked on big commercial stuff, then we worked on your everyday 9K mini split, or we were doing hydronic radiant floors. We were doing AOR changeouts. So I got to kind of dabble in a bunch of different things growing up in the trade, but then getting into distribution, I didn't realize that there was as much different specialization between distributors and wholesalers and manufacturers reps and commercial manufacturers reps for rep firms and things of that nature. So over my first kind of 13, 14 years, I worked for a couple different distributors, and now I shifted into a new role with Carrier Enterprise where I kind of get to cover everything 60 tons and down. And for the first time, really, in my career, I get to actually use all of that knowledge in one place. So I completely understand the wanting to be able to have access to all the different tools in your toolbox or different things, because that's what helps make the industry interesting, is getting to learn all this other stuff and help support people do it.
Yeah, it keeps you interested, keeps you engaged, and it keeps you sharp for sure. Like and one skill absolutely benefits another skill. Like they all work hand in hand eventually.
Well, and talking about one skill benefiting another, what's some things you've learned in the past few years that you wish you would have known 15 years ago?
I mean, I am fortunate that I was a young apprentice and we did have phones because like the my predecessors who trained me, they would have grown up with like CB radios in their truck, right? And that's a whole nother story for another day. But I didn't have internet on my phone like we do today. So there was a lot of like phoning a friend and figuring stuff out. So it would have been nice to have the technology in my hand I have today to benefit me as an apprentice from yesterday. Um, the phone that you have in your hand is probably one of the greatest tools you have in the field. If used correctly,
Correct.
you gotta make
Correct.
sure you add
If
that
used
little,
correctly, not for
yeah,
not for following Jay's life on Instagram while you're under
yes,
the house or on the
yes.
rooftop, but for actually digging into knowledge.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think I'm an old man and I'm not. But then I get these old man vibes from myself sometimes when I have an apprentice who's like, "Hey Jason, can I send you a link to a YouTube video? I want to ask you something that they were talking about." And I'll be like, "A YouTube video? You kids are watching YouTube videos to learn about
Yep.
HVAC?" And then I'm on board with that. I support it, but I just get this like moment of hesitation where I'm like, "Oh gosh, people are watching learning the trade from YouTube," but it's totally one of the things that
It's so
is a tool
different
in your
now.
toolbox. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I remember, doing. My dad was a Rude Ream dealer forever, and I remember having like Ream University or Rude University like CDs that we put in the desktop, and it had like one class on it, but that CD cost you like $100, and it took you
Dude,
15 minutes to go through this class, and you're like, what? But it's just a different time. Now there's every single manufacturer has got bukus of training online. You just have at it. It's crazy.
we're cleaning out one of our shops right now, and we're like throwing out all this old manuals and documentation for units that are 40 years old that have long since been replaced. But one of the things that we're finding a lot is all those little startup CDs or training CDs like you're talking about. But I mean, those were a tool that we would be given at a supply house to go learn about something. But like in my truck as an apprentice, and even into my truck today, I still keep a lot of documentation. But you had to print out the manual and have it in your truck. I had a large like couple bins of training manuals in my truck, so I had like the manual with the wiring diagram, the sequence of operations, all that stuff in there, because how else are you going to be able to reference it if you don't have your phone? So you literally had bins of books in your truck, and that's how we did it.
Oh, I remember like the entire center console of the service van was just stacked books for
Yep.
of service manuals for stuff in case we ran into it. Because in the mountains, when you're an hour away from the office, you don't want to have to drive back to the office to find a book, because you sure as heck didn't have phone service if you even had phones
Right.
at the time. I'm trying to think. It was maybe a year or two ago. I brought back an old set of manuals that Dad had, because when you go through it, like all of the different instructions and stuff are almost done in like HVAC caricature form. It's hilarious. I have to
Hmm.
go through it and send you a picture of one of them, because they're
Yeah,
they're they're
yeah.
great. They're so funny. But the funny thing is, it's I wouldn't change a thing. I wish they would come back out with a book just like this now if you were actually going to do a print when you do a printed manual, because I feel like in some ways making it a bit more, not necessarily funny, but I think just kind of taking this a little bit of the seriousness out of it actually can make you more engaged with it, because it just makes you kind of feel not so stressed or pressured to figure it out. Does that make sense?
You just described my personality, right? If you haven't figured it out, I'm a little bit of a silly goose sometimes, right? And so
Yep.
you got to smile about it and come up
Yeah.
with a plan and move on.
So I know Red Seal Path is no joke in Canada, and I know I've spoken with you and with Doc and Foodie and Rachel and all of the Red Seal Inc. team. Shout out to my friends. Um, but what is that? What does earning that certification truly mean to you and all of your team and the guys that you help train to get theirs? What does that mean personally and professionally for you guys?
To me, it's a big deal. I take a lot of pride in my Red Seal certification and the other certificates and training modules that I've completed that complement my Red Seal. Um, but even more than that, like one thing I've started to really take pride in the last probably decade of my career is the fact that I've been training the next generation of HVAC mechanics, and that had a lot of I had a lot of pride in doing that, and a lot of it like personal enjoyment in my career, and like rejuvenated my enjoyment of the trade. But and then fast forward to maybe in the last 5 years, I've now been given the opportunity of like, hey, Jason, you're going to be the sponsor. You're going to be the guy who gets to sign off on them. So I literally get to have the privilege, and I mean that when I say privilege, to sign my name to a document that has their certificate on it that they achieved. Right? It's a big deal.
It's a big deal, but it's good to have a leader that takes pride in wanting his apprentices to succeed. I hate to say it, but there's not enough of that in the trade industry completely, like from top to bottom, not just in HVAC, but in all trades. There's not enough people that truly want those guys under them to succeed. And that's not me saying there's not enough trainers or anything else, but I think there's a distinct difference in a guy that's just training you for something and the guy that is mentoring you while training you to
Yeah.
do something. I think there's a huge difference. And I think being able to have that kind of pride in what you do and really pour into apprentices and students is what will make this a better industry in the long run. I appreciate what you do for our trade and all those people. That's not me trying to pat a buddy on the back, but it is at the same time, because I appreciate that. That's that's what I like to see. That's what I want to see. as we go and build this trade for the future.
Just as much as I'm a proud girl dad, I'm also a proud apprentice dad, if you want to call it that.
Right.
But yeah, it's great. No, it is. It's great. It's watching them succeed. And then I also have the privilege that I've been at my employer for 18 years, but I am not unique. Like, we have another technician who's actually been with my employer for about 6 months longer than me. So I keep on asking him if he could just take 6 months off, and so that way I would have more seniority than him. Right? I mean, the reality is, between you and I, since nobody else is listening, I've probably worked more hours in the last 18 years than he has. So maybe that changes things. But sorry, Darren. But I have apprentices that have been here since like first and second year apprenticeship, and they're journeyman +5, right? So like, I have the privilege of working with these guys and watching them starting to take the reins to mentor our new apprentices we have now. So it's not just me training guys, it's watching the guys that I've mentored over the years and trained over the years take those reins from me and also start to train the young apprentices themselves. It's great.
And that's leadership by example. And that's when you know it's being done right. And one of the things you've always been vocal about is about staying hands-on in the field. I feel the same way about my side of things. Like, even if I were to go and be a sales manager above what I do day to day with contractors, if I'm still not out selling with my guys underneath me from time to time, and I lose touch with the market, then I'm not an effective leader. So how do you balance making sure you still keep some of that hands-on field time to stay in tune with what your guys are doing while you're into a new leadership role now?
I make it a priority. Not to say that means the office isn't a priority too, but you just got to find those moments and you make it. Like, for instance, last weekend, I mean, how rude of them. They didn't invite me to a big, massive 270-ton crane lift to lift a large couple 100-ton rooftop off the roof. But guess what? I showed up anyway, and gave a hand.
I mean, it'd be hard not to show up to that,
right? I cut my teeth on that thing as an apprentice, changing compressors on it a whole 15 years ago when the compressors blew on that thing, and then we replaced compressors and it's ran great for the last 15 years. But our 22 equipment doesn't last forever, so we swapped it out, and I wanted to go be a part of that. And it's more so just being able to manage your time, because it is a priority to me that I don't just sit at a desk. It is a priority to me to continue to be in the field a bit. So I just have to manage my schedule as best I can to find those moments where it makes the most sense for me to go and swing by a couple of sites in a little route and do some, I don't want to say surprise visits. I usually let the guys know I'm coming, but just, go take them out for coffee, turn the wrenches with them for an hour or two, and move on to the next one. Make sure they have everything they need to be supported.
What do you think it takes to really make a great foreman or service manager in today's HVAC environment? But I feel like the last 15 minutes, you have quite literally about given a masterclass on what it is to do that these days. But as we kind of wrap up a little bit of that, what advice do you have for techs who are ready to take the next step from kind of putting the tools down a little bit into getting into leadership? What's some good words of advice?
Yeah. And this goes for apprentices wanting to move to the next step, or young journeymen wanting to move to the next step of senior. Just go do it. Take the bull by the horns and just go do it. Go to your leadership group, whatever that looks like, or your ownership group or your foreman, and be like, I want to do this. What do you need from me to do this? And just go do it. And if they say, no, we really need to do this, go train and figure some stuff out on your own, and just show them that if they won't give it to you, go take it. Go show them that you're capable of this, right? And then if they, honestly, if other people are listening, don't listen, but if they're not going to support you in that, then maybe that's not the right place for you. Go find a new home. There's other places that will be happy to have somebody who's ambitious, wants to work, and is interested in advancing their career.
I will completely second that. If you don't feel like where you are makes sense and they aren't helping you grow, then you need to be in a positive environment so that you can grow. Because if you're not learning something new every day in this industry, it will pass you by like that, because HVAC is constantly changing. Having grown up in a family HVAC business, I know firsthand what it is like to have hired someone that you had to train for weeks just to get them up to speed. But what if they came trained, certified, and ready to work on day one? That's what Apprentice Now is all about, providing contractors and businesses with employees that are trained first so that you can hire right. If you want to know more about what Apprentice Now can do to help you and your HVAC business hire quality new technicians and installers, visit HVACR&D.com, check out the vendor hub, and click the Apprentice Now link to get started today. So let's talk press fittings, since that's what we're actually really here to talk about. Ironically, RLS does not know this, but the first time you and I actually shook hands and got to meet each other was at the RLS booth at AHR in 2023 in Atlanta. And we've had some great times together thanks to RLS over the last couple of years. So muchas gracias. But, when did you first start using RLS, or really when did you start even using press, and kind of what was your first impression seeing that new technology start to come into the industry?
Yeah, so I'll be honest, we would be what you would consider a late adopter. Probably in the last 5 years, it's been on my radar. Actually, probably longer than that, since before 2020, I guess. But yeah, the last 5 years, it's been on my radar. And then in the last probably 3-4 years, we've really started to ramp up production of using press fittings for refrigeration pipe. Like anything, again, you can call me the old dog if you want, but I'm not resistant to change. I just need to see it work for myself. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I want to talk to other industry professionals that I trust, that I know, that I have a network with, and see what they have. And I do that with other guys about other stuff as well. And it's really important to keep that network alive, to just make sure that, hey, is this product right for me, regardless of what that product is? Because maybe it fills a niche that you need, or maybe it doesn't, right?
And there's still a lot of folks that are hesitant about press. So, what are some of the things that helped you build trust in that system to start being confident with it in the field?
I mean, like anything, it's a slow start, right? You invest in the tool, you invest in some fittings, or maybe you don't invest in the tool. Maybe you have an opportunity to rent it from a supply house, because we have some of our supply houses will rent press tools, whether they're for refrigeration pipe or gas pipe or water pipe. It kind of allows you to maybe go do a job and try it out without having to invest into the tool.
Yep.
Or you maybe have a buddy that you know who has it, and you make a little trade with him for a week to try out the tool and on a job and go from there. But for us, that was our experience. It was just like a little bit of a slow start, install a few units, make sure that it is what it is, and then we've kind of ramped it up from there.
One of the other things too is a lot of people still look at it and they think you're trying to replace brazing completely. And I don't think, no matter what you do, we will never completely eliminate traditional brazing. So, what benefits have you seen firsthand using RLS versus brazing, especially in commercial and industrial environments?
Yeah, so me personally, projects that I've found great success in is I have a lot of niche server rooms with fancy Lieberts and Canatels and different HVAC equipment that's actually in the server room. So the HVAC equipment is right beside the expensive servers with all the fans and the fanciness. So I don't want to braze in there, because it's a big deal to braze in there. To turn the fire suppression system off is a huge problem. A lot of places like that will have a pre-action system. So if there's a smoke alarm or a fire alarm or whatever, something goes off inside the server room, they don't want to just flood it with water. That's kind of a bad thing. Like electrical servers,
those don't mix.
Yeah. So they have pre-action systems. So basically it's a big tank full of gas that displaces the oxygen in the room, and then that's how they quench the fire. Well, I certainly don't want to be in there with a torch and have that system go off. That's very dangerous. So we try to eliminate the torch from being in that room. So I've had opportunities where I've gone in and I've maybe brazed some stubs on the device I'm changing, whether it's an expansion valve or a dryer, or maybe I have to pull something out to adjust it and then put it back in, and we'll just press it back in with some couplings or a couple 90s so that you can not have to do any hot works inside the room.
And I had Ryan Fig, Top Gun Mechanical, on the show. I think he was episode 130. But I had him on the show last year, and we talked a little bit about press fittings when it came to commercial industrial VRF stuff, and the way that it has allowed him to kind of change and create a more efficient, niche style of installing that product. So I think there's tons of new ways that it can be hugely beneficial. But how has press also changed the game for you in terms of job speed, safety, and consistency when your team is using it?
We have a whole bunch of, well, let me rephrase that. We have a team of guys that are doing like new projects and stuff or replacements of equipment. So we're going into buildings that are in operation, whether it's a pharmaceutical application or just an office building, or we work in some care homes and critical environments like that where we don't want to use flame because people are walking down the halls, right? So if we can press, that's what we do. So a lot of our installs that we're doing, whether it be a VRF, whether it be a split unit, whether it be water piping or gas piping, we're choosing to bid the job and plan accordingly to press first as our first option.
And you've also, you're training newer guys on that stuff as well. So, have you had feedback on, guys that never had even seen press, and you're taking that and letting them do it for the first time? And, what's their reaction to seeing the difference in, efficiency for certain types of things versus what they learned to braze initially?
Just like your first solder joint, Ryan, I imagine it wasn't very pretty.
It was not. It was not. Cajun Joe was not proud.
Right? So I insist that even the new guys, under the watchful eye of one of the senior guys, would go and do the training video that RLS has to make sure that they understand what they're doing first. Because before I have a young apprentice or young journeyman who's new to a task, I want them to understand the knowledge first, and then we'll apply the practical portion of it, right? So they're usually very receptive to it, because when you tell them that, you braze a joint and it's really hot. So not only is hot works an issue, whether you have to put the system on test or do something with the fire alarms or do a fire watch, like I also don't want to burn myself. So if I can just press a fitting, I eliminate all that part of it out of the equation.
And speaking of things like that, what's a project that stands out where press really saved the day or made it noticeably easier?
I had our friends, Jessica and Jaden from RLS, I convinced them to fly down and come do a visit with us. And we did an install that was in a building that was basically like a care home kind of idea. So yeah, there's people
Gotcha.
Who have reduced mobility going up and down the hallways and stuff. And in those applications, Hotworks is an even bigger deal, because the fire safety plan is like, if there's a fire, they shelter in place, right? So we got to be really careful with what we're doing so we don't set off any smoke detectors and all that kind of fun stuff, or have too many tools kicking around. So we avoid a lot of that by pressing it. So we did some brazing on the roof. And then from there, pretty much the entire project, all 6 floors down and interlocking branch boxes and HVAC heads, is all pressed in.
And once again, you talk about branch boxes and everything else. I continue to hear where people are using VRF or multi-port systems where press continues to just be a massive boost for efficiency and being able to work on that stuff.
Yeah, big time. I mean, especially in retrofit applications, I don't have an open floor plan with steel stud. I have finished spaces with drywall, and there's conduit here, there's a fire alarm there, and there's a light fixture here, and there's a shelf over there. So like, you're very limited in a retrofit application where you can place this equipment, where you can place the piping. So the last thing you want to be doing is turning a torch on in these tiny little areas. Like, we're pulling some of the line set through like communication rooms that have all the internet and fiber optics for the phones and stuff for these suites, or we're pulling some stuff through like an electrical room closet, right? So we want to avoid all aspects of that. And so that's where it really shines for us, is to be able to press in those applications, because it's just safer.
One, I believe it's kind of becoming a new standard in a lot of Canadian markets. It's becoming a newer standard here in the U.S. as well, especially with us transitioning to A2L refrigerants and mildly flammable refrigerants. There's talk about different states will implement burn permits or different things for guys having to braze in attics or under houses. So being able to press instead of braze, I think, is a huge difference. Are you continuing to see that becoming a bit more of a new standard, especially as you continue to talk about different kinds of fire suppression systems and everything else that you're working around?
To be honest, in my market, what I personally experience is I experience the opposite. It's usually like we have engineers that we work with and they're great and they're open to press, but then sometimes you'll work on a new project and like, all right, here's how we're going to do it. And they're like, no, we want you to braze it. And it's like, we're not going to braze this. Why would we braze it? And then we usually bring it to the end user's attention that like, hey, we can do this process this way. And then we show them some jobs we've done and show them that like it's all fine and dandy and certified and happy, and then we move forward that way. It's honestly where I am, it's like a slow burn. The people who use it a lot, but the people who don't, they're ignorant about it, right? So we kind of bring that to their attention that like, hey, this is an option for us that's going to give us a more successful outcome.
I'm glad you said people are ignorant to it. So I was making my rounds to one of the branches I haven't visited yet. So where I'm at in my new job, I'm an account executive and I cover 12 branches in the state of North Carolina. And my job is really to help kind of build and develop new contractors and build the support team through all of our sales team and inside sales to build the right support for that customer as we bring them on board. And I was at a branch counter meeting a branch manager and a couple of the counter guys, and a contractor came in and someone had asked a question about press stuff and I was talking about it, and he piped up and he said, if you press instead of braze, you're a hack. And I had to really hold my tongue. I kind of want to debunk that comment just a little bit. So first off, what are your thoughts on if someone were to say, if you press instead of braze, you're a hack?
I always smile. I hear those comments too, or I read them on social media, and you just kind of smile, and it's like, you, dude, you're gonna get left behind, and you have no idea. It's the same idea when back in the day working on a furnace, and you had your like Honeywell fan switch to turn the fan on, and there's like maybe two or three other components in there, and then now all of a sudden you have like a electronic ignition controller, and then everyone's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what to do with my life anymore. The trade continues to evolve, and this is just one of the many areas where it evolves. And to say that you're a hack is kind of silly, because I'm not using it in all aspects of my job. Like, we're still flaring, we're still silver soldering, we're still brazing. There's instances where you need to do all of them to complete a task, right? It's just about completing the task efficiently, safely, and without stress. And that's why we lean towards stuff like that all the time.
Well, and that's 100% the truth of it. Again, like we've said this entire show, if you're not learning something new or understanding how to implement, something new into the toolbox to make your job better going forward, then you will be left behind. Do you think press technology and things like that are playing a role in attracting and retaining younger technicians who they might want a little less torch time and get to learn how to do other ways of doing things so that they can make their jobs more efficient going forward?
Does it attract them? I don't know. There's a lot of. It's hard to say if I know if it attracts them. To me, like when you're a young apprentice, it's kind of everything is scary and new, and you're just kind of going with the current. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sure they grab onto stuff like that where it's like, you know, all I have to do is press a button. I say facetiously. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But I mean, to go through the training for that procedure for like RLS, for example, like it doesn't take very long, and then you're empowered to know the theory, and then you work with someone who's done it before to work on the practical, and then away you go. Right? I don't need to worry about the apprentice burning down the building with the press tool. I don't need to follow up with him 5 minutes later or her 5 minutes later and be like, hey, are you okay in here? And then they're like running up down the hallway with smoke behind them.
Well, and I think, and maybe I phrased that incorrectly. I think it is an attractive new thing we can use in the field to have better solutions for customers and jobs that we
Yeah,
encounter. So I think
absolutely.
that's probably the better way I should have phrased it. If you were trying to convince a skeptical contractor to try RLS or try press, what would be your go-to pitch or advice to that person?
It works. Honestly,
Plain
though,
and
it
simple.
works.
It works.
We've used them in HVAC applications on suction lines, discharge lines, um, liquid lines. We've used them in service applications, like to cut out and press in ancillary devices, line sets, like you name it. Like it works. It does what it says it's going to do. The only time I will preface this. The only time I've had a problem with RLS is because I went to go check in on a guy and he wasn't pressing properly. So he was pressing in the wrong part of the fitting. So rather than press where in between the flare and the gasket, he was pressing on the gasket. And
Yep,
so
that's not gonna work.
we caught that very quickly. And that was one of the things that, like, again, you got to do the theory first and then you do the practical. So if he had invested the 10 minutes to read through the manual or to watch the video online, that would have made sense to him. But we caught it. That's part of my responsibility to make sure you follow up with them. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was gonna say the only time that I have seen issues with press is if it is done incorrectly. Um,
And
I
that's the
had
same
the
with flare and everything else you see in the trade. Oh, what was wrong with that
100%.
threaded fitting? Oh, he didn't install it correctly. You know what I mean? So
Oh yeah,
if
and
there's a way to mess it up, someone will find a way to mess it up.
yeah, absolutely. And I've seen firsthand. I got to enjoy spending some time with the RLS demo truck last year.
Nice.
Sold a ton of fittings, a ton of tools in a counter day. That was a lot of fun. But I also got to watch them, put these fittings in and blow them up at like crazy PSI levels. These things can
Yeah, that's me
handle what we're doing, but it
for
needs to
sure.
be something that you guys have in the toolbox. Since 1961, JP Lamborn Company has been the name behind some of the best flexible duct products in the business. A third-generation family-owned company that built its legacy on integrity, innovation, and service. That same spirit drives them today, with antimicrobial technology, top-tier materials, and a relentless focus on quality. When contractors need a product they can stand behind, JPL delivers. It's more than just flex duct, it's peace of mind. JPL, the name you know, the quality you trust, and the flex that delivers. We'll start to wrap up a little bit. You've been a huge part of the HVAC online community for many years. You've been in it longer than I have. What keeps you coming back to the content side of the trade?
Well, to be honest, not being in the field as often as I normally am makes it difficult. But I'm still there. I'm still hanging out because I don't know really why I joined social media. I think I joined social media originally because I started to move into a more leadership role. So rather than make my little jokes in the company group chat, I decided to post them online for everybody else to see. The reality is they all ended up following me anyway over there. But um, one of the greatest things that came out of that is I had no idea the network of people that was out there to support me. So, and not just other tradespeople, but the manufacturers reps, the distributors. Like I've created so many relationships with those individuals where maybe I need a specific manual or I need a specific part number for something, and to phone the counter is sometimes difficult because they might stock hundreds of different pieces of equipment and I need a very specific refractory for this specific boiler that they probably sell 3 of in a year.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go through the social media portion of it because I happen to know the rep agency or I happen to know the manufacturer and be like, hey, can somebody help me with this? And then 9 times out of 10, if they're on social media, they're paying attention to the account and they respond with like, hey, release revise with your email. And then within a few minutes, you're CC'd in an email chain to an applications engineer who can give you exactly the information or the manual you need, or perhaps even the phone number for the local guy in your area, and they give you a call. Like, to me, that's invaluable. And I've leveraged that part of my network many, many, many times and continue to do so. It's amazing.
Well, and I think a lot of us have learned that. I will be honest. I never expected that when this show started and I really got into, social media from a HVAC perspective, I never knew that I would make probably the majority of the best friends in my life have come because of this show. Like case in point, like yourself, Doc, Foodie, Rachel. I wouldn't know any of you people if it weren't for social media and this show, and I wouldn't know this huge community of people that are just great people. And I think, you've always embraced that collaboration over competition thing, which I constantly mention on this show. And, we see it every day through social media and through how we all interact with each other. But, why do you think it's so important to focus on collaboration over competition for the future of the trades?
It is key, and I mean that. Like I've had other, not just your online friends or your internet friends or your people on social media, but also just in your immediate network where you work too. It seems counterintuitive that I'm going to go talk to somebody who works for another company who does what I do, but like it helps to be like, hey, you guys, I saw that you guys did this project. Like, how did that go? What were your challenges? Because we have a project that we're doing, and 9 times out of 10, people are super receptive to have a conversation with you or meet you at a supply house or have a coffee with you. I mean, to be completely honest, moving into the office is something new, so it's scary. So I leveraged my network and I went and I spoke with somebody who is a service manager for another company who has a similar path to me, where they've worked for that employer for a long time, and had a great conversation with them. And they were more than happy to share their successes and failures and what worked well and what didn't work well.
That's an important thing. And I think in so many ways, a lot of times people they get frustrated because they think we're all trying to steal each other's work. No, there is enough work for all of us. There's more work than all of us together can handle. There's not enough of us. I think it's important that, I'm friends with sales guys at other distributors. We talk.
Yeah.
There's times where a customer comes to me and I don't have the solution, but because
Yeah.
I have friends places, I'm like, look, go call Jeff over here. He'll take care of you. And I know that I can say that, and Jeff's going to take care of the guy, and he's not going to try to steal my customer from me, but he's going to help him. And if he's got a customer that's got an issue and I can help solve it, he'll send them to me, and we take care of one another. And I
Yeah.
think there is definitely not enough of that in the wholesale distribution rep side of things at all. It's become much better on the contractor side. It's still a bit of a struggle on this side, but it's getting there. But if you could bring back one major thing of focus in the HVAC world, whether it be training, mentorship, tools, whatever, what's something that you would really try to bring back into focus for people and say this is important? We need to do a better job.
Yeah, look out for your brothers and sisters in the trade, right? So support them, mentor them, collaborate with them, and even if you don't work with them, it can be from another company. It's so important to maintain that network and work together as like a unit and share your successes, but also share your failures, right? So um, you look on social media and you're like, wow, these guys are and these girls are thriving. They're amazing. Look at all this cool stuff they're doing. They're getting free tools. They're getting trips. That's just one part of it. Um, it's There's a lot more that goes behind the scenes to become a master of your craft and to become proficient in what you're trying to do. And a big part of that is training the next generation. It makes me a better technician having to explain to an apprentice who's wide-eyed and bushy-tailed and doesn't know what I'm talking about in terms that they'll understand, right? So it benefits you as well to mentor and collaborate with others.
Absolutely. Lastly, my friend, where can people follow you, ask you questions about anything from press fittings to training, moving into an office, or just share a good bourbon recommendation?
Ooh, yeah. Send in those bourbon recommendations or Scotch whiskey, whatever we're allowed to get across the border these days.
Right?
um, I'm on Instagram at HVAC_J604. That's probably the easiest place to find me. Don't be shy, and let's get a conversation going.
So, Jay, thank you so much for taking some very early time of your day to speak with the trade crew and I. If you're not following HVAC R&D online, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at hvac.rnd. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Trade Hounds, and Facebook. As you can hear Cody in the background whining because he wants to go out. But you can find me on LinkedIn, Trade Hounds, and Facebook as the HVAC R&D podcast. Please make sure to also follow the newest R&D bonus show, the HVAC Zoomies, on Instagram at HVAC Zoomies, as well as my co-host Rachel Plain at HVAC Rach. Thank you for listening to the show on your favorite platform, whatever it may be. Please smash the like and subscribe button to follow the show. Please like and rate the show. Leave me a comment, leave me a review, and share me with your friends and your trade crew. Go check out HVACRD.com and visit the vendor hub and the swag shop. If you'd like to work with me or join the show, let me know. Reach out. I'll send you the podcast questionnaire, and we'll work on getting you on the show. Have a great weekend, trade crew. I'll catch you soon. Peace.